Alright guys, today we got a really good comparison, the Galaxy S20 FE versus the S10 Plus. Now you can pick both of these phones up in the used refurbished marketplace for around 300 bucks for the S10 Plus and around 400 bucks, and I'll have those links down below for the S20 FE. So very two interesting picks. It's not as easy as you actually would think. There are some big, pros and cons here. So let's go ahead and get into it with the build quality. Now, I really do think I kind of prefer the S10 Plus look a little bit more in the feel. It does have a full premium design, a full glass and metal design. The S20 FE does have a metal railing, but it's got a plastic back with a matte sort of finish here, which doesn't look bad. So let me know, which one do you guys kind of prefer here? As far as size-wise, they honestly both are about the same size and the same weight, and pretty much the same button layout as well, kinda. Now there is an essential difference here. So you can see I have a headphone jack on the S10, no headphone jack on the S20 FE. They both have stereo speakers as well here. Alright, so here is one of the most essential differences here. So with the S20 FE, we do have a Super AMOLED 120 Hz display. And it is a 1080p display at 407 for the PPI punch hole, and we do have the S10 Plus display at 6.4 inches, so it's a slightly smaller, just a little bit smaller. Then it's a dynamic AMOLED display at HDR10 Plus at 60 Hz, so no 120 Hz, but it is a 1440p display, 522 for the PPI. So basically, the S10's display is sharper than the S20 FE's display. You can watch videos at 2K on the S10 display, rather than the 1080p display. But here's the trade-off. The S20 FE has a 120 Hz display, so everything is silky smooth, and you are going to notice that. So if you're just scrolling and stuff like that on YouTube or whatever, then you'll really feel like the difference there. It is a very noticeable feeling when you're scrolling and pretty much doing whatever. 120 Hz, really noticeable on Instagram. If you have games that are compatible with 120 Hz, it is very noticeable. Also, I do like the punch hole being in the center rather than on the right hand side. Now, a lot of people, you might prefer the double punch hole for the ultra wide camera or the wide camera on the S10 Plus, so that really comes down to personal preference. Honestly, you get used to both very fast. But yeah, so that is a very interesting trade-off. So basically, lower resolution for 120 Hz, and then you get a higher resolution, no 120 Hz. So it really comes down to what you want. Me personally, I would definitely go for the 120 Hz here. It is just an awesome feature to have. But if you really like 2K displays, go for the S10 Plus here. Alright, so let's go ahead and go over these specs here. So with the S20 FE, it launched with Android 10, so it's going to have a longer life cycle than the S10 Plus. So as far as software wise, you are getting more updates on the S20 FE. It has the Snapdragon 865 chip with Adreno 650, micro SD support, and then you also have 128 gigs of internal storage, 6 or 8 gigs of RAM. This is the 6 gig RAM model. On the S10 Plus, this launched with Android 9, so Android 12 is going to be the last update for this phone. So you do have the Snapdragon 855 and then the Adreno 640, micro SD support, 128 gigs of internal storage, and 8 gigs of RAM on the S10 Plus here. So you can see those Geekbench scores. Now, as far as speed and gaming performance, you're not really going to see a big difference here if I'm just going to be completely honest here. Yes, the S20 FE is going to be like kind of slightly faster than the the S10 here, but I really don't think it's anything that is dramatic. So let's launch YouTube. As you can see, they virtually like kind of launch the same. Again, with the S20 FE being just a hair faster here, but I don't think it's anything like. You can see that was pretty much a tie there. But like I said, the real speed update comes with 120 Hz. Like the scrolling, like it is just buttery smooth on the 120 Hz on this display here. And I think you kind of notice a little bit of a difference for games. but then again, not really. It looks like the S10 Plus, yeah, the S10 Plus actually went it right there. It got into there a little bit faster. Now, when we get into games and stuff like PUBG, again, we're basically working with the same graphics as you're going to see here. And it looks like the S20, looks like we're in. So just to check out the graphics, as you can see, you know, it beat it by a good margin. So I do think it gets into games faster. But as far as your actual graphic performance, as you can see, it's literally the same settings. So there's no real difference when it comes to gaming performance. You know, as of right now, it's not a difference. Now again, just to reiterate this, on the S20 FE, if you do play games at 120 Hz or games that are compatible with 120 Hz, then you will notice a difference in your gaming performance for sure here. But other than that, you know, there's just not, you know, there's no difference. So you're going to get very fast gaming performance on both of these. Be sure to check out my gaming test. I do have both just on the S20, I have the Snapdragon version and the Exynos version of this phone for gaming tested. So if you guys are curious about that, but gaming performance is going to be basically the same. So let's check out these speakers. So we do have stereo speakers, and we both have Dolby Atmos turned on both of these guys. So let's go ahead and check that out. Now, surprisingly, the S10 Plus sounds like it has the better speakers here. It's got better bass quality. The bass is a little bit clearer on the S10 Plus here. The S20 FE is still loud and it's still a good sounding speaker, but it doesn't sound as clear as the S10 Plus. Yeah, so I have Dolby Atmos on. It just doesn't sound as good. Yeah, so I would definitely give it to the S10 Plus here for speakers. And also, like I said, you do have a headphone jack as well. So I think it wins in the audio department, honestly. All right, let's talk about additional features and getting into the phone. So these phones basically have the same, you know, features. You have Samsung desktop support on here. Your secure folders on here. You do have your wireless power sharing on here as well, so you can charge up another device on the back of both of these phones. So they kind of, you know, are the same in regards of features, and they're both IP68 dust and water resistant, and they both have NFC. They both have an in-display fingerprint sensor, which is very fast. They feel pretty much identical. You also have face unlock there, so they're pretty well matched in terms of features. It's not really a big difference that I can point out to you guys. Alright, so let's go ahead and move on to the camera. So the question is, are the S20 FE's cameras better than the S10 Plus? And yes, I do prefer pretty much all the stills, the selfies on the S20 FE. If you guys have seen my videos on it, I said the cameras are pretty impressive. It's still a flagship quality camera. So you do have a 12 megapixel standard, an 8 megapixel telephoto, and a 12 megapixel ultra wide with 4K video at 60 frames, and a 32 megapixel selfie at 4K at 60 frames. And you're just getting some really awesome shots. The image processing is very good. Also, the color is very accurate on this camera. You also get pretty good detail. The telephoto does a good job. The ultra wide is pretty close to the main lens. Video is solid. Yeah, I just think this is an awesome camera. So I still think this is a top-notch quality camera, especially at this price point. And it's not really to take anything away from the S10 Plus. For an older flagship, it still takes very good photos. I had really no issues with the, you know, the images. I just prefer how the images looked on the S20, but you do have a 12 megapixel standard, a 12 megapixel telephoto, and a 16 megapixel ultra wide on here as well, 4K video, and then a 10 megapixel selfie with an 8 megapixel wide cam, which is really nice. That's something the S20 FE lacks, and that shoots in 4K at 60. So like I said, the S10 Plus's cameras, as you can see from the stills, they're still very good, images. You can squeeze some very nice looking images out of here, no problem. You get some really nice vibrant colors, good detail on here. Like I said, no real issues here. I think the S20 FE's cameras is just going to be a little bit better, and it performs to me a little bit better in low light scenarios too. So that is one thing also that I wanted to mention. But as far as image quality, even if you decide to go with the S10 Plus, you're still getting a pretty good camera as well. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the screen on time or the battery situation. So on the S20 FE, you do have a 4,500 milliamp battery with 25 watt charging, 15 watt wireless charging with reverse wireless charging at 4.5 watts. On the S10, you do have a smaller battery at 4,100 milliamps, 15 watt charging, which this charge is so much faster than this phone, which is something that I can really appreciate about the S20 FE. So that's also another highlight. And then you also have 15 watt charging on here with 4.5 watt reverse wireless charging. So the overall battery experience for me was just definitely better on the S20 FE. It has a slightly bigger battery. They're almost kind of tied, but the thing is, I really prefer the faster charging speeds on the S20 FE. I think that was a big deal for me personally. But these are both all-day phones to me as a light user. So if you're not like gaming super crazy on both of these, you can easily go all day with these phones, no problem. So that is pretty much it, guys. So basically, to break it down, S20 FE, the pros are 120 hertz display on here. You get a longer software update cycle on this phone as well, and you do have a slightly stronger chip, but it's really not that big of a deal. But I would say the main highlight is I do prefer the cameras on the S20 FE. The highlights with the S10 Plus, 1440p display, you get the headphone jack as well, and overall the ultra wide camera up front is pretty nice to have. But yeah, so I think that's pretty much it. So it really comes down to, do you want the display and the headphone jack, or do you want all the other perks you get with the S20? Do you want to pay that extra $100? So be sure to let me know which one would you guys go with, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.